One major thing we don't like about Nnamdi Kanu's Biafran agitation PDP. The Ahmed Makarfiled faction of PDP speaks on the series of agitations ignited by Nnamdi Kanu. The party says the manner in which the Igbos are going about their agitation is wrong. Nigeria's leading opposition condemned the issuance of the 3-month ultimatum by the northern groups for Igbos. Senator Ahmed Makarfiled faction of People's Democratic Party, PDP, has said it has no problem with the series of agitations ignited by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. Makarfi at a press conference on Wednesday, June 21, in Abuja stressed that the manner in which they are going about it is wrong. The opposition party also condemned the issuance of a 3-month ultimatum by the northern groups for Igbos to vacate the region. The faction praised acting President, Yemi Osinbajo, for the steps taken to douse the tension created as a result of the ultimatum. Read the full statement below. Gentlemen. In the countdown to the 2015 general elections, the prediction from many quarters was that whichever way the result of the election went, the nation would go up in flames as the losers were expected to cry foul and orchestrate crises of monumental proportions. However, to the eternal shame of naysayers and prophets of doom, events took an entirely different and positive dimension when our party, the People's Democratic Party, which was then in power, accepted the results which did not go its way, and facilitated a smooth transfer of power to the opposition. This concession was just a culmination of the many measures the party took while in power, to entrench democratic traditions by, among others, encouraging Nigerians through the provision of platforms and fora for the exchange of ideas to address our national and developmental challenges. This, no doubt, is one out of many legacies that the PDP is very happy and proud to be identified with. 2 years after that transfer of baton, our party remains optimistic of the potentials of this great country, and its commitment to the unity, prosperity and progress of Nigeria remains unshaken. This is why, despite the change in status, the PDP believes that it is duty-bound to continue to contribute to nation building by helping to consolidate on the foundations already laid. We believe that human and national development, however well defined, normally comes with challenges. It is the handling of such challenges that determines the direction that the development takes. As a country and a people, we have faced several developmental challenges. Some have been resolved while many others are yearning for a resolution. And even after such resolution, as it's typical of the evolution of human societies, we should expect to be confronted by new and emerging challenges. It is thus the responsibility of each generation of our leaders to grapple with and handle such emerging challenges in the best way possible. It is always a work in progress. Some of the challenges we face as a country at the moment include, but not limited to, the following. The situation in the Northeast. This has remained a nightmare for all Nigerians for a fairly long time. Credit, however, goes to, particularly, members of our armed forces who have been toiling day and night to restore normalcy in the area. We salute their valor, courage and spirit of sacrifice as they continue to protect the territorial integrity of our country. In addition to continuing to give all necessary support to the armed forces to consolidate on the gains recorded so far in the zone, government should, as a matter of urgency, initiate policies and programs for the rehabilitation of the area, as well as looking at the remote and immediate causes of the problem with a view to ensuring the foundation for lasting peace in the area is laid. the conditions at the IDP camps that litters not only in the area but also other parts of the country need to be improved upon to make them more conducive for human habitation. We sympathize with all the people affected by this conflict. Herdsmen, farmers clashes, even though not an entirely new phenomenon especially in some parts of the north, this has recently taken a new and even more dangerous dimension. This may not be unconnected with rise in both human and animal populations with the consequent increase in demand for land for both purposes. Taking into account the fact that both crop farming and animal rearing are important agricultural activities that have a very important bearing on our nation's economic fortunes, and also the fact that both sides have constitutionally guaranteed rights to existence, it behoves on all governments to come up with measures that will once and for all address the issue. This, apart from the return of grazing reserves as is being espoused by some state governments, should also include facilitating the coming together of both sides to talk with themselves. We must, however, be able to differentiate between the business of peaceful cattle rearing and criminal activities and take appropriate steps to protect lives and property. We must also secure our borders in order to prevent the influx of foreigners who may not respect the laws of our land. Of concern also is the issue of cattle rustling, which is also taking an altogether unprecedented dimension. This, unlike the pastoralists, farmers' problem, is clearly an issue of criminality, which governments and security agencies need to wake up to reassure victims that the state is there for them also. Kidnappings. This is one other vice that seems to have taken a life of its own and is holding the nation to ransom. Waking up daily to the news that this or that person had been kidnapped and ransom demanded and paid for their release is almost becoming a norm until the situation now graduated to the kidnapping of whole groups of tens of people. The recent incident along the Kaduna-Abuja highway as well as the kidnap of school pupils and their teachers in Lagos and other parts of the country is evidence of the spike in the daredevilry of these criminals and underscores the very urgent need for the state and security agencies to also up their ante in the fight against this scourge, which has the capacity to bring socio-economic activities to their knees. Apart from additional funding and equipping, intelligence gathering, capacity of the security agencies must be improved as a matter of priority, as this would enable the nipping of this criminal activity in the bud. We though wish to commend the security agencies for the bursting last week of a criminal gang of kidnappers which had brought untold hardship and anguish to several Nigerian families. It is our hope that this feat is just the start of a series of efforts to not only bring this criminal enterprise to an end but also bring the perpetrators to justice. We urge the security agencies and the judiciary to ensure that these criminals face the full wrath of the law. Agitations and counter-agitations. By far the most worrisome of all the challenges to confront us recently are not the agitations and counter-agitations that have been occupying our space but the manner in which they are being made. The PDP believes that in any democratic space, allowance must be made for people to express grievances and agitate for the redress of such. This is a vital ingredient that sustains democracy and the rule of law. This was why while in power, the party never shied away from providing platforms and fora for the expression and dissipation of feelings, however strong, with a view to finding common grounds among our people. You would recall that it was a PDP government that convoked a political reform conference in 2005, where an opportunity was afforded Nigerians to take a look at issues that were then considered important enough for us to deliberate on. It might not have resolved all our problems because no single conference can, but it was certainly a veritable vehicle that not only injected fresh air into our political space, but its recommendations substantially formed the kernel of the constitutional amendment processes that were later conducted. Similarly, when in 2014 new agitations emerged, the PDP did not fall for the convenience of sweeping them under the carpet. Our government then convoked yet another national conference at which issues of concern and interest to Nigerians were tabled, deliberated upon, and even far-reaching recommendations made by representatives. We couldn't go any distance with implementing the recommendations made for the obvious reason that we lost the reins of power in the 2015 elections. It is however gratifying to note that the current Senate has requested the executive arm to resubmit the report of the 2014 conference for further action. It is our hope that this will be used to accelerate the process of further cementing the unity and functionality of Nigeria. I said earlier, the PDP has no problem with agitations. In fact, we respect them and regard them as vehicles through which all segments vent their legitimate feelings, but we want to urge all of our people that in trying to draw attention to their yearnings and aspirations, respect for one another and the realization that our rights do not include encroachment into, and infringement on the legitimate rights and dignity of others, should guide our conduct. Nigerians and a people, we cannot run away from talking to one another, but this should be on the basis of mutual respect, confidence, and even empathy. This will enable us to have a proper understanding of the feelings and yearnings of each other and properly appreciating where we all are coming from, as individual groups and as a whole. Nigeria as a federation has come a long way, and it is our duty as individuals and a whole to ensure that it endures, and indeed surpasses the dreams of our founding fathers. Every step we take must be, as the Americans would say, towards a more perfect union. We are therefore free, to at any point in time take a look at the structures of the union, not its basis, and effect whatever corrections we collectively agree are necessary. It is in this context that we view calls from some quarters for the restructuring of our own concept and practice of federalism. We however observe the restructuring could mean a different thing to different people. It is therefore important that we consider the framework within which we can even discuss and be on the same page as to what kind of restructuring we mean or desire, and if nationally accepted, agree on framework for its implementation. It is not in dispute that the incursion of the military into political governance from mid-1960s all but eroded the very essence of federalism as was practiced pre- and immediate post-independence, to largely service the command structure of the military, and along the line even democratic administrations have had to make do with the military-imposed structure due, largely to the fact that such democratic dispensations, including ours, have had to govern by the dictates of constitutions promulgated by the military institution, which is basically unitary by nature. Now that democracy has got foothold in the country by, for the first time, surviving all the elements for close to 2 decades, a critical look at areas that need improvement is imperative. It is therefore not out of place for any or all segments to come up with ideas that they believe will strengthen the structures of our federalism with a view to restructuring it in such a way that it serves all of us and not just some of us. Such exercise should take a very good and critical look at all the structures and institutions, as well as how they operate, with a view to giving them a new sense of direction in tune with current best practices, though, as with all societies, taking due consideration to our peculiarities as a people. Whatever comes out of such exercise, so long as it is the aggregate agreement of our people, we should get to work to ensure that it works. Whatever is agreed upon, however, it is our belief that it will not take us to the promised land as long as we don't have strong institutions that serve the state, not the whims and interests of those in charge at any given time. We, for example, need institutions like armed forces and security agencies to operate on the premise of loyalty to the nation rather than loyalty to the president, governor, or whatever nomenclature the chief executive is given. Should not look like a novel idea because we see it happening every day around the world in countries that have built strong institutions that are the bastions of their democratic structures. A recent altercation between some of our people which degenerated into the issuance of ultimatum and counter-ultimatum for some of us to leave certain areas is an ill wind that blows no good, more so that we have a sad history of no so dissimilar circumstances that we had better not allow a repeat. Speeches either coming from the north, south, east or west must be avoided and be condemned by all of us. This country belongs to all of us, and every one of us must be allowed to enjoy the constitutional guarantee of freedom to live and move about this vast God-blessed land without let or hindrance to pursue his or her legitimate endeavors. I reiterate that mutual respect and accommodation are a very necessary ingredient. We have had that before, we still have that and must not allow it to elude us. We must also ensure that we have a better legacy to upcoming generations than the one bequeathed to us, and not worse. This is the way decent societies are built and developed by each generation, building on the blocks laid by its predecessors, not destroying what they found in place. There is no harm, however, in trying to improve upon an existing structure. North, south, east or west, we remain Nigerians and we must continue to make conscious and deliberate efforts to develop and not diminish this our beloved country. We must therefore, as in any vibrant union, continue to engage ourselves in various conversations that will oil the wheels of our progress. In view of this that the PDP wishes to acknowledge the efforts of rational national leaders across board for weighing in on the side of restraint and the imperative of peaceful coexistence. The acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, deserves commendation for the steps he has so far taken to douse the tension occasioned by the altercation, but we call on all government to build on that by ensuring that its programs, policies and steps are tailored in such a way and manner that no section of this country is given the impression that it doesn't count. At this juncture, let me seize this opportunity, on behalf of the entire membership of PDP, to join all compatriots in sympathizing with our president and praying over the current state of his health. We wish President Muhammadu Buhari a quick recovery. Let me reiterate the belief of the PDP in the unity of this country as well as its unwavering commitment towards the attainment of its manifest destiny as a country of pride to the entire black race. The party has tried to give its best in the first 16 years of this dispensation. In the course of that period, we scored many firsts, but as is to be expected in any human endeavor, we couldn't escape making mistakes here and there, but overall, we are proud of the milestones reached under the stewardship of our party, especially put side by side with what obtains in the polity currently. Age.com previously reported that the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, said its leader has proven to be a prophet sent by God to liberate the people of Biafra. IPOB alleged that its leader predicted the recent attacks in London 3 years ago. A statement by its media and publicity secretary Powerful Emma, The group said all the attacks happening in London were seen and prophesied by Kanu on November 6, 2014. Emma said, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the living prophet of our time, in his broadcast over the air on the 6th of November 2014 said that Islamic terrorists will overrun Britain if they continue to be against Biafra, which is happening today.